I think it is important to point out that Bethesda's lawyers have been very, very busy the last couple of years. I don't know how many stories we've been talking about, lawsuit here, lawsuit there. Must be what Cosby and Weinstein are probably going through, but regardless, Bethesda at one point was at the top of this video game industry. 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, everybody was excited for the future of Bethesda game studios. They truly were delivering non-stop amazing games. Of course, there were issues with the design and the bugginess of these experiences, but Fallout 3, Skyrim at the time were legendary, and many people were excited to see what Fallout 4 would be like. And in 2015, after Fallout 4 was announced, and then that big Bethesda E3 conference in which we got to see some gameplay, it was really full steam ahead, the hype movement. So many people were excited. This was the go-to game, and really everybody was hopeful and really kind of just thinking that Bethesda was going to deliver no matter what. Now, one of the big promises that they made at the time was that, yeah, are you guys going to be getting a bunch of DLC just like we did with Fallout 3 and Skyrim? And everybody was like, okay, that's great. So the expectations was that, well, look at Fallout 3. We had the Pit, Point Lookout, Mothership Zeta, Broken Steel, and Operation Anchorage. Some of the best story DLC ever, and actually I would say for a game, that's probably the best DLC lineup. Maybe Fallout New Vegas could have an argument with that, but regardless, Bethesda Game Studios really went out of their way with those DLCs, and the expectations were, well, they were extremely high with Fallout 4, with DLC support. But as we learned once again the hard way just a couple of months ago, expectations, extremely high ones, don't always get met. And Fallout 4 is a game that I think a lot of people would agree that it's a pretty good shooter, has some really fun mechanics. I actually like settlement building, but for a Fallout game, it lacks in many ways, like writing, which is kind of important for an open world role-playing experience, especially a franchise which is known for its writing and characters. But overall, Fallout 4 released in November of 2015 to a mostly positive reception. I'm not going to get into the arguments about whether it's a great game, it's not, blah 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 blah. All I can say is I had a fun time with it, and yes, for certain a game that came out earlier in that year kind of stole its thunder and won most of the Game of the Year awards, something that I don't think any of us could have envisioned at the time. But anyway, after Fallout 4's release, all of the discussion moved to DLC, because expectations were already extremely high, because in September of 2015, for only $30, they started selling a season pass, something that a lot of us had assumed at the time was going to be of great value, because look at Bethesda's past portfolio with games like Skyrim and Fallout 3, what they did in terms of DLC with those games. So expectations were high, and Bethesda made some big promises at the time, while not actually showing anything. They said, based on what we did for Oblivion, Fallout 3, and Skyrim, we know that it will be worth at least $40, and if we do more, you will get it all with the season pass. So those were the promises that were made, and I can say for a certainty that I don't think Bethesda really delivered on that, and now they're being sued over that. Yes, years later, a class action lawsuit, it looks like, is now being put together, and this actual lawsuit has been going on for a while now, it seems. It's just been quiet because I guess both parties are having discussions, and it doesn't seem like Bethesda wants to settle, and this could become a lot bigger, could actually delay the Microsoft deal which is coming, and it also could cost Bethesda billions of dollars. So we go to VentureBeat, which has the scoop on what actually is going on, and first, we talk about on September 9th, 2015, what I just mentioned. 2 months before the game shipped, the Bethesda team announced it was selling a season pass for $30 that would entitle gamers to a lifetime of DLC. And then, as it says, we've always done a lot of DLC for our games, we love making them, and you always ask us for more. To reward our most loyal fans, this time we'll be offering a season pass that will get you all the Fallout 4 DLC we ever do for just $30. Since we're still hard at work on the game, we don't know what the actual DLC will be yet, but it will start coming early next year. And then they say the part where they bring up their past games, and they again make that promise that everything will be included in the season pass. But the issue with Fallout 4 is the Creation Club, and I always knew eventually this was going to come back to bite them. I'm actually surprised that it just took so long, but back in 2016 there was a lot of confusion on Bethesda's part of how the heck they could explain what the Creation Club is, because if they had admitted that it was DLC content, well, they already made a promise that all season pass content would be included just for for $30. So they couldn't say that, and they also couldn't say paid mods because of the previous controversy that had happened a couple of years prior, in which that failed miserably. And yeah, Bethesda faced a lot of criticism and a lot of outrage from the modding community, which is really the community that has made Skyrim and Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 what they are. You could attribute a lot of those sales to the modding community, because Fallout 4 is still thriving to this day in Skyrim because of the modding community. Without them, this game doesn't have the lifespan that it has had. But anyway, to this Fallout 4 lawsuit over the DLC, this is what it says from VentureBeat. They say, over time, the Season Pass description consistently stated gamers would get the Fallout 4 Season Pass and get all Fallout 4 DLC for one special price. It hasn't been revealed how many people bought the DLC based on that promise, but the lawyers believe it was in the millions of players, and for sure, because I think everybody had expectations of what it was going to be. It was going to be like Fallout 3, it was going to be like Skyrim, but it did not end up being like that. And then, interestingly, Bethesda did increase the price of the Season Pass to $50 in March of 2016, and their reasoning at the time for that was that they were going to be making more DLC content than they had expected, although again, remember that promise that they had made in 2015. Now, this is just bringing back a lot of flashbacks for myself, just because I forget a lot of this because of all the Fallout 76 nonsense that has happened the last couple of years. But yeah, Fallout 4 definitely had some dents that I've forgotten, and you could probably go back to Skyrim and I've even forgotten so many of those. But yeah, Bethesda has certainly racked up quite the resume in the last decade of very anti-consumer and bad decisions overall. But let's keep it on going. On June 11th, 2017, Bethesda announced something called Creation Club. Oh boy. The company characterized Creation Club as a collection of all new content for both Fallout 4 and Skyrim. It features new items, abilities, and gameplay created by Bethesda and outside development partners, including the best community creators, modders. Creation Club content is fully curated and compatible with the main game and official add-ons. While it sounded like mods or community-created modifications for the game, it was really DLC, and it still is. Mostly created by Bethesda itself, said Filippo Marchino and Thomas Gray, attorneys at the class action law firm The X-Law Group. Players like Jacob Devine of California thought that they were entitled to that DLC based on the promises that Bethesda made in the past. He bought a season pass in April of 2019 at a GameStop store. I bought the first season pass and I was like, cool, that'll give me access for all of the rest of the game, right? Oh boy, you're mistaken. This AAA games industry. That's not how it works. Then they dropped that new batch. I'll go check it out just to find out I had no access at all, and I had to buy another season pass basically to have access to it. I was just disappointed. I felt like I was ripped off. Me too, and a lot of other Fallout gamers at the time wondering what the heck happened, because Fallout 4's DLCs were everything but what we had expected. Like, I just want to bring this up. We had Automatron, which had like had some narrative to it. It was very little. It was very minor in the grand scope of things. Wasteland Workshop, again, that was just whatever. If you didn't care about settlement building, you didn't give a crap about that. Then there was Far Harbor. That was the first real DLC that had come about, and that was pretty decent. And then we had a couple more workshops. We had Contraptions, Vault Tech, and then finally the last DLC, another story-based one, which was fine. Honestly, I didn't really care for it all that much. That was Nuka World. I thought that was creative and a little different, but overall the Fallout 4 DLC, I think people would have been okay if Bethesda had actually offered it originally at $50 or such, and then just had followed the model that they had done with, well, Fallout 3. Skyrim kind of started where they were going with this with Fallout 4, but I really don't think a lot of people wanted all of this workshop stuff, and that workshop stuff has continued with Fallout 76, and I really hope that they don't do that again with Starfield, because that's just going to be annoying. But yeah, I think a lot of people felt a little duped by what Fallout 4 had offered, and then obviously a number of months later it's like, hey, here's the Creation Club with a bunch of new content that you have to buy, and a lot of it's overpriced. Isn't that disappointing? They've also sold some nostalgia items, like going back to DC. That would have been pretty cool if it was actually a Fallout 4 DLC that we could actually get with the season pass, but that was not the case. And as I said before, Bethesda has had extreme trouble with explaining or grappling with what the heck Creation Club actually is. And Bethesda's VP of Marketing, Pete Hines, he had an interesting exchange that happened on Twitter in 2017, which is worth note. He said Creation Club is separate from DLC, similar but not DLC. And then somebody called him out because he had said in an interview that it was mini DLCs, and then he responded saying, when asked if they were mods, I said they were more like mini DLCs. And then they responded, so your whole shtick is saying it is what it is, so it is mods or DLC. And then Pete Hines says, it's Creation Club content, we're trying something new. And then they say, exactly, never a straightforward answer. Looks even better when the vice president in PR and marketing can't answer a simple question. And he says, you were trying to force something new into an existing category. I'm sorry if that answer isn't good enough. It's different. He says, actually, would make the company look bad, but not all of us are stupid and can see past it. I know you understand that. And then he says, paid mods are when modders can charge for their mods. This simply isn't that. I understand and respect your opinion, even if I don't agree. And of course he wasn't going to agree because he can't. This is the company he works for, and if he admits that, well, Bethesda could get in a lot of legal trouble, and still they are facing that legal trouble today because eventually it was going to catch up to them. Now, getting back to this VentureBeat article, it continues to point out that Bethesda said those purchasers weren't entitled to the Creation Club content, again because Pete Hines, or Bethesda, tried twisting the narrative saying, no, this is completely new. It's definitely not DLC when it is exactly that, DLC. But in the quotes it says, simply put, Bethesda sold a season pass with the understanding that it was going to give the holders of the season pass and any DLC content that there was going to be created for the game Fallout 4 on a go-forward basis. Marchino said in an interview with GamesBeat, they released a limited amount of DLC, then they released a second wave of DLC, but decided to call it the Creation Club content and artificially removed it from the definition of DLC, meaning that they promised people at the onset, we will be giving you everything we made, and then they reneged on that promise. And they did so to their benefit or the detriment of the plaintiffs. So that's where they did something wrong. They lied, they took money from gamers, and then they made more money. And yeah, that summarizes it pretty darn well. Now, to this specific lawsuit, it states that on behalf of the 19-year-old Divine, the X-Law Group filed a lawsuit against Bethesda for false advertising on July 9th, 2019. Like I said, this has been going on for a while now. But the lawsuit charges Bethesda with breach of contract, unjust enrichment, promissory estoppel, breaking a promise, even in the absence of a legal contract, deceit or fraud, fraudulent concealment, negligent misrepresentation, tort arising out of breach of contract, breach of express warranty, and violation of Maryland's Consumer Protection Act. Quite a bit there. Margaret Esquinet, a counsel for Bethesda, filed an answer to the lawsuit denying most of the legal claims. On its face, Bethesda's defense is that the new content wasn't DLC. The company itself was one of the pioneers of selling DLC. Yeah, horse armor. Which goes back to the mid-2000s. It includes content that is developed as an addition to a game, released either with the game or after it comes out. It'd be interesting to see that go to an actual courtroom and having to argue that the Creation Club is not downloadable content because it really is just that. But it'd be interesting to see Bethesda lawyers actually have to defend that point of view. But continuing on into this VentureBeat article, it points out that Bethesda created typical DLC for Fallout 4. They had new weapons, armor, apparel, locations, characters, creatures, and quests. Now though, we get into the more legality of the situation, why this could be of big concern to Bethesda and also Microsoft, who is set to acquire them very, very soon. And what's interesting about this is that Bethesda apparently made some huge legal mistakes, and even outside lawyers are saying that, yeah, this could be a case, it could be something. But here's what VentureBeat points out. They say Bethesda made some amateur legal mistakes. The opposing attorneys say, surprisingly, Fallout 4 did not come with an end-user license agreement, which could have spelled out the details about what gamers were entitled to, Marchino said. Remember, that was the case with Fallout 76. That's why the class action lawsuits could not actually happen. There was an arbitration clause, and eventually that did result in players getting some money back, but it was a huge legal process. But yeah, Fallout 4 for some reason actually did not have a EULA. That is kind of strange. And this is what David Hopp, another lawyer, says. He says, it's surprising to me. He's the managing partner at Gamma Law, a game industry focused law firm. It's a surprising situation for a sophisticated company. Hopp, who does not represent either party in the case, says the litigation has been going on for a year and a half. He notes that neither side has been able to talk much yet about the merits of the case. On top of that, it didn't say what was included in the season pass or what was the cutoff date for the pass when it came to future content. That was always the problem. That's why a lot of people assumed back in 2015 that they were entitled to all of the Creation Club content. Players like Divine believe that they're past entitled, yes, like I said, that they were entitled to all of the content. On the Steam store webpage to this day for the Fallout 4 Creation Club, it is listed under the category of downloadable content, said Gray at the Xlog group in an interview. It says DLC and downloadable content on several parts of the Steam page. There's no way that Bethesda can say that the Creation Club is downloadable content on Steam. And then it's also noted that none of the marketing material ever mentioned that the Season Pass did not or would not include Creation Club content, although I think an argument could be made that not even sure that Bethesda was at all thinking about the Creation Club, but it was certain that they were looking to monetize the modding community, and still, even to this day, many are not happy with the Creation Club. It was not warmly received when it was announced in 2017, and still many hate it to this day. But hey, I mean, Bethesda was always going to face criticism for this, especially following their whole paid mods debacle that had happened years prior on Steam. But next, this VentureBeat piece just discusses that the Creation Club came as a surprise. It had $281 worth of content, mostly created by Bethesda itself, not actual content creators or modders. It included a variety of different things, and then the opposing legal team said that they believe that it should have been included in the Season Pass, and I fully agree with that. Bethesda's marketing and public relations chief Pete Hines called the new content almost like mini DLCs in interviews with publications such as IGN and GameSpot, said Gray. There are pieces of DLC that are skins for weapons and armor, Gray said, referring to the images in the story, and there are pieces of Creation Club content that are skins for weapons and armor. There are DLC quests and there are Creation Club quests. It's a distinction without a difference. Listing for the Season Pass still says to this day that purchasers will get all Fallout 4 DLC for one special price. Instead, Bethesda has created a distinction without a difference so that it can sell Creation Club content to purchasers of the Season Pass, Marchino said. The lawsuit is not yet certified as a class action. Both sides are in the discovery stage. As Microsoft tries to close the transaction, Marchino said he is concerned about what Bethesda is telling Microsoft about the lawsuit. He said that he is concerned that Bethesda might try to shift its assets to a new legal entity and shield itself from any legal liability related to the class action lawsuit. Now, the reason why these lawyers are concerned is apparently because of a lawsuit that had emerged just a couple of months ago, which made some very startling allegations against Bethesda Softworks, the publisher of Bethesda Game Studios. And this one's a little interesting. It's very complicated. We actually talked about it on the channel, but PC Gamer kind of lays it out here. In December 2019, Rune 2 publisher Ragnarok Game sued original developer Human Head Studios, alleging that Human Head had attempted to destroy the game by very publicly abandoning it on launch day and then refusing to turn over the source code and assets so another developer could take over the job. And then in 2020, just a couple of months ago, the lawsuit was amended to include ZeniMax Media and Bethesda Softworks, which announced in November 2019, the day that Human Head went out of business, that it had hired the entire team and reassembled it as Roundhouse Studios. Human Head's initial Roundhouse announcement implied that the studio had reached out to Bethesda after the decision to close had been made, but the updated complaint said that Bethesda was an active participant in the efforts to torpedo Rune 2 and another game called Oblivion Song, and had begun conspiring with Human Head in late summer of 2019. Essentially, they said that Bethesda was the primary reason why Rune 2 was pretty much abandoned on launch day. There was a bunch of other allegations made that one of them was actually pretty interesting, that Bethesda actually crafted the original statement that the studio was being shut down and turned into Roundhouse. But like I said, that's a whole nother mess. Some really shady stuff that may or may not have gone down. That's making its way through the legal system. This is what I meant by earlier on, that Bethesda's lawyers are very, very active. But anyway, that's why these lawyers in this lawsuit are concerned right now, because of the shady crap that went on with that business. Now, what could end up happening with this lawsuit? What's the end result? Well, VentureBeat points out, during the case, the plaintiffs asked if Bethesda was amid an acquisition. 2 months before the big deal was announced, they received an answer from one of Bethesda's lawyers. She replied in a letter on July 10th, 2019, saying, "With respect to the alleged sale of Bethesda, your letter is nothing but rank speculation and suspicion. You have failed to provide any credible evidence of any impending sale or asset transfer, much less that anyone at Bethesda is allegedly plotting to commit fraud and/or dissipate assets to avoid some hypothetical non-existent future judgment, which of course is not the case. Moreover, the discovery you are seeking is intrusive, irrelevant to any claims in the case, and is an attempt to harass Bethesda and its management. And then the lawyer Marchino said, what we're going to try and do is go in and ask a judge to stop the sale between Microsoft and Bethesda to preserve the assets, and it's known as a motion for a preliminary injunction. I think corporations don't have a sense of guilt because they're not humans, but it is fundamentally wrong to lie to people just so you can make an extra dollar, Marchino said. That's what this case is about. Now, a trial might happen by 2022, but the risks are clear given the pending acquisition. The actual damages could be over $1 billion. If punitive damages are awarded, the amount could be multiple times that amount. Now, the outside lawyer Hope said that he doesn't think that either side wants this to go to trial, and he believes a settlement is likely. And then he concludes by saying it's really hard to believe that the exposure would be that big. It seems like the easiest thing to do would be to open the Creation Club to everyone who bought the season pass. Would Bethesda do that? I don't know, but either way, this is certainly a lawsuit that probably is a couple years late, but probably should have been expected in the first place, because there was always something very weird with how Bethesda got away with wording their DLC with the Creation Club. Never made any sense to myself, never made any sense to a lot of gamers, and here is the probably should have been expected legal action a couple of years later. Now, some additional thoughts that I have about this situation is that I imagine why it's now going public and why we actually have comments from the law firm is that they're trying to put some pressure on Bethesda to settle, saying that look how big this could get if you don't throw some money at us. And that's what I think is happening here. How much bigger that this could get is certainly interesting. The result of this actually becoming like the Creation Club opening up for all season, that's not going to happen. It was never going to happen. I certainly do hope that Microsoft restructures and changes all of Bethesda's monetization. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but yeah, this is going to be interesting to watch because I definitely think that there is a case here. And Bethesda has gotten away with a lot of stuff. This may be something that they don't get away with, but I'm certainly interesting as somebody who did purchase that season pass and honestly thought that I was getting all of the DLC content. I really am interested to see what the end result of this entire ordeal could be, but I don't expect it to disrupt the Microsoft deal. That's going to happen regardless, but I do think that this law firm is trying to put some pressure on Bethesda, and I don't know if this would be a multi-billion-dollar deal if that's what I actually would get, but it does sound like that this could be going on for a while now, and that this could get a lot bigger. What is notable about this VentureBeat article is the point that there is no EULA apparently with Fallout 4 that doesn't prevent a class action lawsuit from forming, so this could get a lot bigger, and that this could be a big mess for Bethesda, or soon Microsoft, that they have to deal with. And that is what separates this situation from the Fallout 76 legal trouble that Bethesda had to grapple with, because, well, unfortunately for gamers and the public, their options were quite limited because of that EULA, but I guess that does not appear to be the case with Fallout 4's, which, like I said, could open up some trouble for Bethesda or Microsoft very soon. One does have to hope that with Bethesda's upcoming RPG Starfield, which we know very little about, but there's lots of rumors and news starting to emerge, all indicating that a possible 2021 release could be happening. Hopefully that game is less controversial than Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. It'd be nice to see Bethesda going in the more positive direction now, especially with the constant headaches the last couple of years with everything that they've been doing. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this entire ordeal? What did you think of Fallout 4's DLCs and how Bethesda handled all of that? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.